We're so glad that you found this Peak City message today. Our prayer is that during our time together, you're able to discover Jesus and are encouraged to follow him fearlessly.
That's good, man. It's so good to sing words that mean something, man. It's so good to sing words that aren't empty and meaningless. You need to know when we sing that Jesus Christ is a living hope. Like if you're new with us and you sense an energy, you sense a response in the room, it's because there are people who have found that to be true, that Jesus is not just like, we're not in here singing Christian karaoke. We're in here singing words that actually have meaning. Like there are people in this room who are facing real life, difficult hardships. There are people in our church right now who are facing death. And they need to hold on to a hope that says that this life is not all we have to live for. And because of Jesus, we got that hope. Man, is anybody grateful that through Jesus, you have the power to face anything that this world can throw at you? It could be a diagnosis, it could be a divorce, it don't matter, man. Jesus has got you. We have a living hope in him. And if you're new with us, that's the best way I can describe Peak City to you, is that it's just a group of people that are really, really grateful for what God has done in our lives, and we're grateful that you're here. You know, whether it's your first time or the first time in a long time, it takes a lot of courage to walk through those doors, and we will never forget that. We will never let a Sunday go by without recognizing the great courage that it takes to give God a chance in your life again. And so, church, can we put our hands together and welcome anybody that's here for the first time? Come on, man, you can do better than that. That's a lot of courage. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, man. I love what God's doing in our church right now. I love how he is building better marriages in the room right now. That's what we're centering around in the month of January, this commitment that this year I will build a better marriage. If you're single, it's this year I will prepare to build a better marriage. And God's working in a powerful way through these first 2 weeks we've been together, and I know today is going to be the exact same. He moved in a powerful way first service. And I know he's going to do it again. I do want to give you a warning, all right? It's a legit warning. Parents in the room, if you got a kid with you in the room who is birth through 6th grade, I would highly recommend getting them into kids ministry. You still got time to check them into Peak City Kids. We're going to talk about some sensitive issues when it comes to marriage today. And there's nothing I'm going to say that's inappropriate or something that I would be uncomfortable with a 7th grader and above hearing. And trust me, if you haven't had some of these conversations we're going to have today with your 7th grader, with your 8th grader, I promise you they've heard about them at school, right? And here's the deal. We are not going to be a church that puts on our Sunday best and comes in here and pretends and plays church. We're not gonna come in here and talk about things that don't matter. We're gonna talk about things that actually intersect with our lives, and we're gonna get real. And I believe God's gonna use it to help many, many people today and set some people free. So man, let's not delay. Let's get into it. Why don't you turn around and make this place feel warm and welcome. Give some hugs. Tell 3 people that you love them. Tell 3 people that you love them, man. You gotta come on right down here. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you, Alyssa. Perfect. Thank you. Woo, man, you guys sound good today. You look good. How you doing? January is almost over. The resolutions are ruined. It's all good. Man, I'm so excited for what God is doing here in our church. I love what we are building here together. It's been so cool to hear over these past few weeks. I've gotten so much feedback from so many people for these first few sermons of the year and just how God is using them in your life, and so grateful to hear that. Next Sunday is a big Sunday. Do not miss it. I know some of y'all are like, Petie, you say every Sunday is a big Sunday, right? And it is, all right? And the reason I believe every Sunday is a big Sunday is because you need to know every Sunday you walk in these doors, there are hundreds of volunteers who have sacrificed their time and their energy to create an environment where you can encounter Jesus, right? Every single Sunday, there are staff that work here 40, 50, 60 hours a week to prepare an experience where we believe you can meet God in a powerful way. Every week, my family and many families in this church are praying for you, praying that God would open your heart and touch your life in a powerful way. And every week, I'm grinding away to try to bring you a message that I think God needs you to hear. And so you best believe every single Sunday, when you sit in these seats, something special can happen in your life. Every Sunday is a big Sunday. But next Sunday is a really big Sunday, okay? Next Sunday is Baptism Sunday. We're going to celebrate baptisms. It's going to be beautiful. Yeah. We can get excited about that. Baptism is the public declaration of a private decision you've made to start following Jesus. And so if you would like to be baptized, you can sign up on our website, peakcityco.com, but that'll be a big celebration. And then also next week, we decided to extend our marriage series just by 1 week. So we're going to go one more week into next week. And next Sunday, I'm going to take really the entire message, and I'm going to show you a biblical framework for how you can view marriage and relationships that will help answer a lot of your questions. But we're also going to answer a lot of your questions. Okay, so over the past week, I've been receiving questions through our text line. If you want to get regular text from us, regular text message of encouragement and prayer and all that good stuff, you can text join to the line behind me. You can also use that line to text in your questions about marriage, about how we apply what we've been learning to your specific situation. It will be completely anonymous, no names attached to it, but we'll take the whole time to answer as many questions as we can so that we can all take some practical steps forward as a church. So that's next week. Do not miss next week. If you're joining us online, send in your questions. We would love for you to participate as well. Now today, we can't talk about building better marriages and not talk about this. Okay, we can't talk about building better marriages and not talk about what we are going to discuss today. It would be negligent. It'd be silly. It'd be like talking about college basketball and not talking about the greatest program in college basketball history, the University of Kentucky Wildcats. It'd be like talking about the NFL and not talking about the GOAT, Tom Brady, right? It'd be like talking about the NBA and not talking about the GOAT, LeBron James. I'm just stirring the pot, man. I'm trying to get as much controversy. I'm trying to get you distracted so I can really stir the pot, okay? We can't talk about building better marriages without talking about sex. Somebody said that's right. Now, here's the deal. I know when I say that, some of y'all are going, oh no, I picked the wrong Sunday to be in church. I actually asked my wife this week, I was like, hey, should I send him an email and tell him we're going to talk about sex? And she's like, nah, man, don't do that. Hold your cards tight and then reveal them. I'm revealing to you now that we're talking about sex today. And I know for some of you, that's really uncomfortable. There's a slim percentage that love this. Like all the young single dudes in our church are like, yeah, I picked the right weekend in church. Everyone else is like, right? Because some of y'all grew up in youth groups where there was a rose petal illustration. And it got really uncomfortable, right? Where it was like, every time you commit a sexual sin, you give a petal of your rose away. And before you know it, the whole rose is gone and you have nothing to give your future spouse. And it got really shame-filled and awkward, right? Some of y'all got scars from this. And it's weird. It's weird to talk about in church. But it's so fascinating to me that this is a weird thing to talk about in church because when I first came to faith, I didn't grow up in church. I didn't grow up, with ambitions to be a pastor or anything like that. I came to faith at the age of 17. I knew the stereotype, I knew the image was church has strong convictions about sex. So I was like, well, surely now that I'm a Christian, I'm in church, we're going to talk about sex a lot. And I found that was actually not what happened. It's like the church has these very strong convictions about sex, but yet we never talk about it, right? And it's weird to talk about because of this truth, but I believe this truth should actually set us free today. There's a truth that I think we need to all embrace, and it should take the pressure off. It should take the guilt off. It should actually open us up to have this conversation. And that truth is that every single person in this room is messed up. All y'all are messed up. I'm messed up. You can't live in the 21st century America and not be messed up when it comes to sex. In fact, right now, let's just take the pressure out of the room. I want you to turn to your neighbor right now, look him right in the eye, and say, you are so messed up. Yeah. You can do it online too. Some of y'all said that a little too aggressively. You know too much. So because of that, now turn back to him and say, I know I am too. Yeah, you messed up, I am too. It's all good. You can't live in the culture we live in and not carry with you into this conversation a luggage load full of pain and regrets and shame and guilt for things you've done, for things that have been done to you, for perspectives that have been so instilled into you by our culture that are so hard to shake. You can't enter this conversation without acknowledging that we're messed up. And because of that, we can talk about it. And what I've found is that that's the one thing that the devil wants to keep us from doing. I think the devil wants us to stay silent on this. We've all been so messed up in this area of our lives when it comes to sex that we're filled with shame, right? Shame is such a heavy, oppressive thing in our lives. What I've found is that the enemy, the devil himself, he will use silence to shackle you to shame. You mess up, you've got some things in your past, you've got some things that have been done to you, and you just gotta stay quiet because you're so filled with shame, and that's where the devil wants you. And so today, I wanna be very clear. My goal today is that you would talk it out. I already held my cards that we're talking about sex. I didn't give you a warning. Now I'm gonna show you all my cards. My end goal for today is that you would talk it out. My prayer is that every single married couple in this church will have a honest and real conversation with your spouse about your sex life. I want you to talk it out. My prayer is that every single person in this church will have a conversation with someone that they trust about their sex life. Because the more you talk it out, the more you remove power from the devil. The enemy in your life wants you to stay silent on this, wants you to stay silent on all the things you are struggling with, all the things you're doing with. And the minute you just find the courage and the boldness to talk it out, you will remove the power of shame in your life. And so what I want to do is I want to equip you with how to have that conversation, okay? I want to equip you with an illustration. A very, very simple illustration today is a very simple old school 3-point sermon. It's a very simple illustration that a mentor shared with me a long time ago about how Jesus and his earliest followers viewed and approached sex, how they saw it and how they used sex to help build better marriages. A very, very simple illustration, and I think it'll set you up to talk it out, all right? And the illustration revolves around fire, specifically a fire pit. How many of y'all love a good fire pit? Yeah, I feel like Colorado is like the fire pit state, There's nothing better. To me, it is at the top of my favorite hobbies is burning down a fire pit with some friends, right? There's just nothing better. You gather friends together, the fire is raging, you crack open a bottle, smoke some stogies, and all of a sudden men just start opening up, right? There's just something about fire and alcohol and tobacco that makes men just pour their hearts out. It's beautiful. But sometimes I love a good fire pit by myself too, man. Sometimes my wife is she loves her sleep. And so she'll be out by 9:30, most nights 9:45. I'll go outside and I'll burn down a fire pit by myself, just me and God. And honestly, many of the sermons that I have preached here have come from late night fire pit sessions with just me and God and hanging out. I love it. But by far my favorite company to keep with a fire pit is my wife. Right? It's like our favorite thing to do. We put the kids to bed, especially in the summertime when the weather's a little bit better, not as cold. Put the kids to bed, pour a glass of wine, bring the Bluetooth speaker out, put some Tyler Childers on, and just burn the fire pit and connect and talk. And we could just sit there for hours and just talk, and no screens, no digital distractions, just connect, just us. I love it. Now, real talk, I was gonna light this on fire, okay? Real talk, we tried to light this on fire this week, and we nearly had the fire department called on us, and the whole place smelled like a campfire for the next 3 days. So I'm not lighting this on fire today, okay? You're gonna have to deal with just this and then the video on screen that has a little fire to give a little ambiance to the conversation, okay? One day I will burn a real fire, but that will have to wait. Right? I'll have to wait till we rent out Red Rocks Amphitheater for Easter or something one day, Then we'll burn it down. Today you're just getting this, all right? I had a mentor tell me one time that as he read the New Testament and as he saw how Jesus and his earliest followers used and approached sex to build better marriages, he said they treated sex like fire, all right, like fire. And with fire, there's some things you got to keep in mind. Again, it's a simple 3-point sermon. My goal is to simplify the noise of our culture, the noise of everything you've experienced, and give you some really simple conversation points, okay? Fire, there's a few things you got to keep in mind when it comes to having a good fire pit, Like number one, with fire, and similarly with sex, you need to respect it, okay? You need to respect fire. This was about a year ago. We were hanging out with some friends, and I was telling them about the Solo stove. This is a Solo stove. This is one of those smokeless fire pits, right? Like, it's supposed to burn the smoke off the top and all that. It's actually not smokeless till like an hour into it, but they don't tell you that when you buy it. I'm not doing a very good job at getting my sponsorship from Solo Stove right now. But like the cool thing about it is like you can put these things on a deck, and the deck won't burn. And so I was telling about this whole deal, like how cool the technology is. I was like, yeah, so like this thing won't burn on the bottom. I was like, I bet it's not even hot on the sides. And I went, ah! It gets hot on the sides, don't touch it. My fingies were just burning. And for the next 3 hours, I couldn't even pay attention to the conversation that was being had around the fire pit because I just was squeezing that ice pack so hard. I did not respect the fire. It's powerful. It has the power to really mess you up, right? You need to respect it. Let me tell you, when it comes to sex, you need to respect it. It's powerful. You need to respect it. It can do some damage. And the truth is, we live in a culture, you know this, that wildly disrespects sex. We live in a culture that is right now pushing on all of us that sex is just a physiological, biological need. It's just something like as a human, you just need to take care of it, kind of like hunger. But there's no real consequences. So, you know, if you want to get your sexual fix through your phone and pornography, fine. If you want to hook up on Tinder, fine. Like whatever, you just gotta take care of it because it's just a need, right? And the way our culture even portrays sex now, in movies and in TV and in music, it's just like it's no big deal. It's just wildly disrespected. And you know what's interesting is that Jesus actually ran into this as well. This isn't unique to our culture. Every culture has been disrespecting sex. And Jesus ran into it. You know, when you look at Matthew 19, Jesus was dealing with a culture of men who were treating divorce and sex like it was no big deal. In fact, in first century Judaism, men were handing out divorce certificates like they were candy. For any reason. In fact, when you go back and study, there were rabbis in the first century who permitted divorce. Rabbi Hillel in the first century permitted divorce for something as trivial as burning the dinner. You burn the toast in the morning, you can be handed a divorce certificate. And keep in mind, this is a culture where women do not have power. Women do not have affluence. They're at the bottom rung of society. And so men had all the power, and they're divorcing women for anything. There was even one rabbi, Rabbi Akiba was his name. I appreciate his honesty because he just came out all cards on the table and he said, hey, here's the deal. I will permit, and we permit divorce if you find a woman who is prettier than your current wife. These guys were trading in their wives. They were doing, sex was viewed as such a low, meaningless thing. It's like when they want a new flavor of the month, go for it, right? That's what Jesus was dealing with. And when he saw the disrespect, of sex, look at what he says in Matthew 19, verse 4. He says, haven't you read, hold up, that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female? And said, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. Anytime the Bible says the two will become one flesh, it's referencing sex. We have cultural idioms and phrases, right? Like talk about the birds and the bees, talk about knocking boots. The Bible says two shall become one. It's talking about sex. It says two shall become one. So they're no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. And then in verse 9, he says, I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another woman, commits adultery. Jesus says, you might disrespect sex. You might be handing divorce certificates out like it's no big deal, but let me tell you, you are underestimating and disrespecting the power of sex. He's like, make no mistake about it. When God drew this thing up, he said, sex is so powerful that this is how it's supposed to work. A man and a woman leave their father and mother, and they come together and they make a marriage covenant, and then they solidify that, they seal that commitment through the act of sex, and through that act of sex, two become one. That sex is powerful enough to build a marriage, and then he says, and the only thing that should really destroy it is also sexual immorality. Sex is so powerful. Sex is powerful enough to build a marriage and powerful enough to destroy a marriage. That's how powerful sex is. Do not underestimate it. Do not disrespect it. is powerful. It's powerful. And here's the truth. I can preach Jesus all day long to you, and some of y'all aren't in on Jesus yet, and that's okay. This is a safe place for you to belong before you believe. You don't have to believe everything we believe yet to find community and find home here. I can preach Jesus all day as my source of truth, and I think he is the source of truth. And he says sex is really powerful, but come on. You don't need to hear this from Jesus. You know this. You know this. We all know this. We know it from experience. I was preaching this message about 2 years ago. Very similar message. I was talking about how sex is the gift that God has given us to build stronger marriages. That was the purpose. But outside of that, it's really, really dangerous. And I had this guy that came up to me after that service, and he's actually since moved away and goes to a different church, a different state now. But I loved him so much because he was just so real and raw, and he wasn't a church guy. Our church was his first church experience. And so he didn't know all the Christian ways to clean his language up and make himself look holy, right? And that's my favorite. And he said, Petie, I get it now. He's like, I now have context for why I feel the way that I feel. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I mean, honestly, I've hooked up with a ton of girls. I've had a ton of one-night stands. And I've always been confused as to why when I see one of the girls I've hooked up with, when I see her on Instagram or Facebook, and she's with another guy, and they're engaged or they've gotten married, why I feel jealous. So I've never understood that. So I've always thought I didn't even like her. I wasn't even committed to her. I didn't really want anything to do with her, and I didn't see any future with her. We just hooked up. So why do I feel jealous? And he said, now I know it's because two became one. The power of sex. It is not just a physiological need. It's not just a biological need. There are spiritual and emotional and mental implications. It is powerful. Do not underestimate it. It's powerful. Come on. You know that what I'm about to say is true, but you probably didn't expect a preacher to say it. It's powerful. That's why it's so good. You're like, are we allowed to say sex is good in church? Are you going to say it when you walk out the doors? Sex is amazing. Come on, man. Even the Bible affirms that sex is amazing. You want a steamy read tonight? Go read Song of Solomon in the Old Testament. Do not read it with your kids as their bedtime story. It is not appropriate. Solomon is talking about how curvy his wife is. She curvy. She curvy, and he like it. It's steamy. Why would God create something so incredible to be insignificant? Why would God create something so powerful to be so petty? Come on, man, don't make any sense. Don't buy into the lie that casual sex is even a thing. Casual sex is not a thing. It does not exist. It's powerful. It's like fire. You gotta respect it. Right? It's like fire. You gotta respect it. Now, once you respect it, the earliest followers of Jesus, they heard this teaching they heard this perspective on sex from Jesus, and they went, man, he acted like it was that powerful, so we got to respect it. The way we're going to respect it is the same way that we respect fire. We contain it. You respect it, and you contain it, right? The mentor I had who shared this illustration with me, he said, Petie, sex is a lot like fire, and in a fire pit, a fireplace, man, it's so beautiful. Like a fireplace, man, fire in that place, it can heat the whole house. Fire in a fire pit, it can warm everyone around. But the minute it gets out of the fireplace, the minute it's not contained, it'll burn the whole house down. It'll burn your life down. Sex must be respected and it must be contained, or else it will burn down your life. It will burn it down. So let me be clear about what I'm saying and what the Bible teaches. When the Bible says you must contain this, that sex is such a powerful thing and you got to put it in its right place, it says that the place you should contain it is within the confines of a marriage between a man and a woman. And so that's where sex is, that's where it belongs. That's where the fire works. That's where the fire blesses and warms and doesn't destroy people. You got to contain it to right there, right? So for married couples, what the New Testament would teach and what the earliest followers of Jesus would teach is you must contain it. All of your sexual energy, all of your sexual thoughts, all of your sexual desire, every bit must be contained to the relationship between husband and wife. That means, for those of you that are single in the room, I know what you're asking. Like, does that mean that I have to practice purity and celibacy before I'm married? Yes. Man, I wish I could tell you a different answer. And I wish I could say that sex was something other than fire, but this is what it is. And you go, but Petie, what if I love them? What if I'm committed to them? What if I know that I'm gonna be with them for a long time? Can I give you a little bit of pastoral wisdom? I've been in the game for nearly 20 years, pastoring people and working through counseling with couples. Can I give you a little perspective? The number of people who have told me, oh, I'm gonna get married to him no matter what. I'm gonna get married to her. Trust me, I'm with them forever. Only to then 6 months later, a year later go, I don't know. But here's the deal. If you bring sex out of the fire pit, if you don't contain it, you will be too bonded to them to end the relationship. And you will end up in a marriage that you never wanted. You will end up in a marriage that is far below the standards that you should have for yourself. Now, here's the deal. Even if you do end up married to them, all right? Even if you do end up together forever, let me tell you, you still should practice purity and celibacy before marriage because you need to learn sexual restraint. If you think getting married is gonna solve all your sex problems, you're dead wrong. You need to learn sexual restraint, and it's way better to learn sexual restraint before you're married than it is to learn it after you're married. Ask any married couple in the room for this advice. They will tell you. You don't want to learn it after. You need to learn it before. You got to keep it contained. You got to keep it contained. This is why the author of Hebrews chapter 4, would say that marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure. You ought to make sure that nothing, that the fire never gets out of this right here. Now, here's the deal. I need you to listen very intently for the next 2 minutes. Because I believe that what I'm about to say to some of you in this room, not all of you, but what I'm about to say to some of you is the reason you're here today. Some of you are brought here today, and some of you are watching this online right now, and it's the grace of God at work in your life that you're here. It's the grace of God trying to rescue you. Because the truth is, right now in your marriage, some of you that are single still apply this to your life. The truth is, many of y'all, you got a fire in the fire pit, and you got a few different fires going on in the backyard. You got a little brush fire over here that's starting, and it's that little emotional connection you got to your coworker. And y'all just have like a thing. You just got like a connection. And it's no big deal. It's not physical or anything. It's a fire. It's a fire. And before you know, if you don't put that fire out, it's going to become an emotional affair, which will become a physical affair, and it will burn your life down. Some of y'all have got a connection on social media, on Facebook. This is aimed at the older audience because it's Facebook. I know what I'm about to say is true. I've been in this too long. Some of y'all right now have got a connection to someone on Facebook or on social media that you haven't seen in 20 years. You went to high school or college with them, and you remember what it was like when you were with them. And you just mess each other back and forth from time to time, but in the back of your mind, you play out what it would be like to leave your spouse and go be with them. It's a fire. And it's nothing big. You know, some of y'all got a little fire going on over here. The fire has gotten out of the fire pit and has gotten into that little smartphone that you carry with you everywhere, and you've got a little secret addiction that nobody knows about. It might be something as simple as Instagram or TikTok, but you know how to get to the right stuff. It might be full-blown porn. You know how to get to the right stuff. But it's all good because it's just a little fire. Nobody knows about it, and you can manage it. And right now, you are managing fires all over the place. And I believe God sent you here today, and he sent me here with this message to tell you that he loves you so much. He has so much grace and forgiveness to you. But I'm telling you, he brought you here for me to tell you to go grab a bucket of water and put the fires out. Be done with it. Cut it off. You know you are under no contractual obligation to go out for drinks with your coworkers after work. Some of y'all, you are getting in that environment and you're drinking a few, and you know how you get when you drink a few, and then there's that one person that's always showed you attention and you just know it's there if you want it. You are under no contractual obligation to say yes to going out to lunch with that coworker. You can pack yourself a little PBJ in a paper bag and look like a kid going to lunch. You ain't got to go out with them. You're not being rude, you're protecting your life. You are under no contractual obligation to have a smartphone. You can get dumb. You go back to a dumb phone. I got a buddy who just did it. He's like, I can't take being connected to the digital world. I'm going back to a flip phone. He's got the Motorola Razr back in the day. You're under no contractual obligation to be on social media. If you've got these things that are causing fires in your life and you're managing them right now, I'm telling you, how many stories do we have to see in the news, in the church, and all around us of people who had little fires going on all over the place, and they never put them out, and eventually the fires turned into a massive house fire and burned their life down? How many marriages we got to see end? How many kids we got to see go through divorce? All because you didn't grab a bucket and put the fire out. It's God's grace at work in your life. I know I'm sounding angry. It makes me angry to see people's lives destructed. It makes me angry to see people affected by something that could have been prevented had you just grabbed a bucket and put the fire out. You've got to respect fire. You've got to contain fire. You've got to respect sex, and you must contain it. You must fight to keep it in its proper place. Now, this is everything you expected me to say so far. If you've been in church any length of time, you expected me to say those two things. It's powerful, don't underestimate it, keep it contained to a husband and wife marriage. That's all you expected. There's one more thing, though, that I don't think you probably expect, but it's absolutely true. It's absolutely necessary if you want to build a better marriage. If you want to enjoy the fruits of a good marriage and a good sex life, if you want to enjoy the fruits of a good fire, not only must you respect it, not only must you contain it, but to really enjoy the fruits of a good fire, you got to ignite it. It's about to get real. You got to ignite it. You got to keep that thing burning hot. What good is a fire if you ain't gonna feel the warmth? What good is a fire if you're gonna have people sitting around the fire cold? You got to ignite it. Let me tell you, sex, you must respect it, you must contain it, and you must ignite it and keep it burning hot. Make no mistake about it. Jesus and his earliest followers, they taught and they lived this out, that the best way to build a great marriage is to respect sex, contain sex, and ignite it. You ought to have, as a follower of Jesus, you ought to have a burning, hot, passionate, frequent sex life. And that ain't me talking, although it is me. I got it from the Bible. I'm gonna show you in a minute. See, here's the deal. I know that for some of you in this room right now, I know that your temptation is not to disrespect sex or to let it not be contained. That's actually not a temptation for many of you in this room and many watching online. Some of you aren't tempted, you're not tempted by any of the things I've mentioned so far. Your temptation is not about that. Your temptation is actually to let the fire grow cold. Right? It's so interesting when it comes to marriage. It's like when you first get married, dude, that fire is burning so hot. Like before, especially if you're like in the church and like you're trying to live out Christian dating and all that. It's like when you start dating and you're not even married yet, the fire is burning hot and you're trying to like calm it down, but you can't, right? You got your hands all over each other, and then you get married, especially if you grew up in the church and you got a little bit of that church guilt in you. When you got married, it's like, woo, guilt-free sex, let's go, right? And the flames are burning hot. But come on, you know what happens. Stress of work bleeds over into the home life. Money issues, money hardship, in-laws, figuring out extended family relationships. Then you actually get to know them and you realize that they were them, but they got some issues. Like they snore, they slurp coffee. My God. this is a shocking revelation in our marriage. She just told me 2 months ago that I slurped my coffee and my cereal. I'm like, we've been together for almost now telling me. She's like, yes, and it annoys me so bad. I'm like, you waited 15 years to tell me? So now I'm like the most careful coffee drinker in the world. I'm so nervous. Nervous coffee. Like all admitting that it's cold. And it happens so gradually, right? Like when you're sitting around a fire pit, you can be so engrossed in conversation and so engaged that you don't even realize that it's getting colder. And all of a sudden you're just like, whew. Like, fire, the fire's going out. It's like, then you add kids into the mix. Oh, nothing will put the fires of your romance out quite like wiping a baby's butt at 3 in the morning. Your energy's off me. Come on. Some of us is that we let the fire grow cold. The fire grow cold. And Paul actually ran into this in the New Testament. And he taught that we actually ought to fight sex life. That we ought to fight to passions of love, burning bright in 1 chapter 7. It is now for the matter you wrote about. This is people in the church said, woman. Somebody was like, hey, spiritual to just yourself. And I think that's the more godly thing to do. And Paul's like, you moron. Sexual immorality is occurring. Like I know what you guys are doing. Each man should have sexual relations with his own wife and each woman with her own husband. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife and likewise the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband. In the same way, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but yields it to his wife. Do not deprive each other, except perhaps by mutual consent for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer, but then come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Translation, what are you doing? Fight for a great sex life. You should have really good, really frequent sex if you're a married couple. Because the devil is attacking you. Like, you're in this together. You ought to fight together. You ought to do whatever it takes to keep the flames of your passion for each other burning hot. You ought to pursue your spouse. You ought to date your spouse. You ought to do whatever it takes to be attracted to and attractive to your spouse. You should learn their love language and give it to them. You should do whatever it takes to keep the fire burning hot. And right now I know it. Let's cut through it and just get real. In every season of marriage, for every couple in this room, in every season of marriage, there is one partner who has a greater sex drive than the other. Y'all know it's true. And I'm not gonna feed into these like stereotypes like the men always want sex and the women never. It's just not true. I've been counseling people for years. So we don't need to feed into stereotypes that make people feel like weird if they don't fit the mold. In every season, one partner has a greater sex drive than the other. And in that season, can I just urge you, can I implore you right now? If you in your marriage are the one who doesn't have as great of a sex drive, you're sitting around the fire and man, you're feeling warm. You cozy. You're good. Everything's fine from your perspective. Can I implore you to look across the fire pit and see if your spouse is shivering? Do you know how many divorces would be avoided if both spouses just said, hey, we're just gonna always be looking across the fire pit to make sure that you're good? Because let me tell you, chances are you are married to a spouse right now, you are living with a spouse who is shivering. And they need you. And let me remind us all, when you get married and you have sex, two have become one. If they're shivering, you're shivering. If they're in need, you're in need. If they're struggling, you're struggling. You are not your own anymore. Two have become one. Look across the fire, and whatever you have to do, if you have to add another log to the fire, even if you're already warm, it's all good. It's all good. Do what it takes to help both partners, both people in this marriage succeed and thrive and ignite that sex life, man. It's a glorifying thing to God when he sees a Christian couple who has a great sex life. That's a beautiful thing, and you ought to fight for it. You ought to do whatever it takes. Now, that's how you approach sex. That's how you use sex to build a better marriage. You respect it, you contain it, and you ignite it. If you will follow those practices, even if you don't believe in Jesus yet, if you follow those, you will build a better marriage. Your sex life will be something that actually builds each other up. And get this, play the analogy out. When you burn a fireplace in your home, everybody feels it. Everybody feels it. You know, when people walk into your home, they can tell whether or not you and your spouse are doing well. They can feel the energy in your room. Let me tell you, your kids, if you got kids, they don't know what to attribute it to, but in the back of their mind, when things are going good with you two, when the sex is going good and you guys are communicating well and everything's good, your kids are like, man, mom and dad have been so patient lately. Yeah, it's because they're having good sex. A fire in the fireplace, a fire in the fire pit, it'll bless your whole household. It'll bless every member of your family. It'll bless all of your friends. They will feel the radiance of the warmth of your love for one another, right? Now, that's the talking point. This is what I want you to go from here. The homework is go talk it out. The homework is every single married couple in this room and everyone watching online, have an honest conversation with your spouse in the next 6 days about your sex life. Have an honest conversation about how are you doing with respecting it, containing it, and igniting it. And figure out what you need to improve on. If you're single, I want you to have a conversation with someone that you trust, someone that knows you, preferably the same gender, and you can have an honest conversation. Are you respecting it? Are you containing it? And are you not igniting it? Because you don't need to be igniting it, right? That's the deal. Now, everyone take one big collective deep breath. I know the grenade that I just handed some of y'all. I mean, let's be real. I just told you to go have an honest conversation with your spouse about your sex life, about whether or not you're containing it and respecting it and igniting it. I know I just pulled the pin and handed it to you. And I know that some of you are going to experience some pain in the coming days. I ain't no dummy. I've seen it. And I know that some of you, even as I've been speaking, have been feeling this darkness. It's been so easy for you to replay the Rolodex in your mind of all of your regrets and all the things you wish you had done different and all the things that have been done to you. It's just so easy to go back there. I know it's dark. And I know that for some of you, there might be some confessions in the days to come. There might be some pain that you have to navigate in the days to come. And it's dark. And it's heavy. And I know. But I want you to understand that this is the moment when you should be applying the gospel of Jesus Christ to your life more than ever. As you navigate this darkness, you ought to apply the good news that Jesus knows everything about you and he chose to die for you. You ought to be applying the truth that Jesus knew how dark your life would get. He knows how dark the days to come will be. He was nailed to a cross on your behalf because of that darkness. You know, when Jesus was nailed to the cross, it actually went dark. That's how dark your sin and your shame and your guilt was on him. It says in Matthew 27, this is historical record, that when Jesus was on the cross from noon until 3 p.m, darkness came over all the land. That was your sin and my sin, your shame and my shame. And he knew it. He knew it. He who knew no sin became sin so that we might become his righteousness. Jesus took it all on your behalf. There is no reason for you to feel guilt. There's no reason for you to feel shame. There's no reason for you to feel all these evil thoughts of bringing you back to your past. No. Jesus has forgiven it. As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed your sin. You need to apply the gospel of Jesus to your life right here, right now, as you journey into the days to come. And for some of you, I believe it's gonna be the first time you've ever said yes to Jesus. We had 6 or 7 people in first service that for the very first time decided to become Christians because they needed the grace and the forgiveness of Jesus. And for some of you, maybe it's the first time in a long time. Maybe you've just walked away. Or maybe you've applied the grace of God to every area of your life except for this. You thought, Jesus can love me in every way, but in that area, I am unlovable. I'm unforgivable. And maybe today's the time where you finally open that area of your heart to him and just say, yeah, that too. I need that forgiven. I accept your love there as well, Jesus. And so whatever it is, I want to give you the chance to make that decision as a private moment between you and God, like we do every single week. So would you stand with me to your feet? Before you bow your heads and close your eyes, I want to tell you this, that we do this every week and we believe it's for everyone. And I want you to know that God is working in these moments in such a powerful way, both in the room and even online. I actually had a guy that just reached out to me a couple days ago and said that he watches our services in his home gym while he's working out. And every time we get to this moment in the service, he stops what he's doing, he stands to his feet, he bows his head and closes his eyes, and he raises his hand to make decisions. God's working. If God's working in your life right now, all great life change begins in a private moment between you and God. So let's do that right now. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes? If you know that up to this point you would not have considered yourself a Christian, you have never received the forgiveness of Jesus and the love, the unconditional love that is offered to you, but now today you're ready to say yes. You don't have to have your life figured out. You don't have to have the Bible memorized, none of that. You just have to be ready to say yes. Yes to grace. Yes to forgiveness. Yes to unconditional love. And yes to following him as best you can for the rest of your life. If that's the decision you want to make to become a Christian, I want you to raise your hand on the count of 3 as a private decision between you and God. 1, 2, 3. It's beautiful. Several hands up in the room. That's amazing. It's amazing. Put your hands down. That's incredible. If you just raised your hand, you need to know you just made the most important decision you could ever make in your life. From this moment, everything changes. Your past is forgiven. Your present is redeemed. God is ready to change your life. I'm telling you, your best days are ahead. We're so excited for you. So excited for you. For some of you here, I know you need to make a different decision, and that is to just apply the love of God to your life again. To recommit your life to him. Maybe just to open up your heart in this area of your life to Jesus and receive his grace. To have a fresh start. You know, you can have a fresh start here, today, right now with God. No matter how bad your past has been, no matter how awful the things that have been done to you are, you can have a fresh start with God right now. And so if that's a decision you want to make, to recommit your life to Jesus, I want you to raise your hand on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. That's beautiful. Hands up all over the room. That's incredible. Jesus, Jesus. Let's ask him to do what only he can do. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you that even when it comes to an area of our life that is as private and sensitive as sex, you did not leave us to figure this out on our own, but you gave us wisdom. You showed us your intentions for marriage from the get-go. And now you're calling us back into that ancient path, back into following you with everything we have. Jesus, I thank you that you worked in the room today. We believe it in faith every single Sunday that you're gonna show up, and you did it today, God. People went from death to life today. People went from dead in their sins to freed and forgiven and alive in you, and we thank you for that, Jesus. God, I ask for everyone in this room who recommitted themselves to you, would you give them power and courage to follow through and to make good on their commitments to you? And God, for our whole church, would you guide us in this? Would you help us to respect, contain, and ignite sex the way that you created it to be done? And God, I pray for every marriage in this room. Let it be filled with love. Let it be filled with laughter. Let it be filled with joy. Let us enjoy this beautiful gift you've given us. And we pray all of this in the name of Jesus together by saying, amen. Let's clap and celebrate what God did.
Thank you so much for joining us for this Peak City message today. If you'd like more information on Peak City Church, or if you'd like to give to the mission here in Colorado Springs, then check us out at peakcityco.com.